Human history does not exist without heartbreak. The most influential artists, poets, novelists, philosophers, personalities, since we first gained the capacity to love, have experienced heartbreak. And theirs was no less than yours or mine. Kafka, Pascal, Bronte, Van Gogh. I'm not telling you this from emotional immunity. I haven't just been there. I was stranded there for 9 to 10 months. It practically robbed me of a full year of my life. And it's not that I believed the heartache might last the rest of my life. It's not that I thought it was something I would carry with me forever. I knew it would last the rest of my life. I had a recurring dream of my funeral 50 years in the future. The men carrying my casket asked why it was so heavy. It was because I was buried with 500 pounds of heartache and regret. There was no doubt in my heart that I would carry this burden of hurt to the grave. And that leads us to the first reality check. We're going to have a few of these. These are absolute facts that we'll talk about. They're not all life-changing, but they're absolutely key to the journey through heartbreak. I used to write these down on Post-it notes and leave them around my desk or apartment or on my bathroom mirror. Here's why it's important to remember these. It's not just that heartbreak alters your view of reality. It alters your reality. You are living it constantly. And what makes it worse is that heartache is a cruel monster. It whispers lies to your heart. Things like, "This will never get better." "He or she was the only person you'll ever really love." Or, "Without him or her, my life is meaningless." Recognize those lies and call them out. It's easy to let your heart believe them, I know, because you feel them. But somewhere in your head, even deep inside your brain, you know better. You know that you've been here before. Think back on a previous heartbreak. Think back even maybe when you lost someone close to you. The hurt was just as real then as it is now. You survived that, and you'll survive this. That's the good news. The bad news is that the only way out of the hurt is through the hurt. It does take time. But time moves in one direction, forward, and it will force you with it. I promise. So our first reality check is to recognize the battle going on in your body. It's your heart versus your head. And make no mistake, they are two very different entities. To quote Blaise Pascal again, "The heart has its reasons which reason knows nothing of." The heart feels. It longs. It hurts. It loves. It aches. The mind knows logic, reason. Each of them serves a purpose. Without a heart, we would be incapable of empathy. Without our mind, we would be incapable of basic survival. The trouble comes when the balance is off. And right now, your heart is hurting. It's hurting a lot. It might even feel heavy. And you can't think or reason with that. For the heart knows neither logic nor reason. The heart just feels. So write on your Post-it note, the heart versus the head. This isn't to make you feel better. It's just calling out a truth. To recognize that your heart is hurting and wants all of your attention. But just for a second, if you can, think with your head. Maybe you're able to think clearly enough to see that even if things were able to be patched up with your ex, there would still be problems. Getting back together might be a short-term fix. It might end the pain immediately, but it is not what's best for you. Difficult roads often lead to beautiful places. I know this is a difficult road. For me, it was the hardest path I've ever taken. But you have been here before. Here's an idea. If you keep a journal, go back to some of your previous breakups. Read what you wrote. If you're not a journaler, think back to those times. Remember how hopeless and hurt you felt, some of those same feelings as you're feeling now. If you don't think time will heal this hurt, think back to those days. For me, I went back and read some of my old journal entries. I was amazed at how I didn't remember feeling that heartache years ago. I read in amazement the words from my younger self describing the same feelings and emotions I was currently experiencing. And I'd forgotten it. I knew why I didn't remember that hurt, because time washes it away. Sometimes it takes longer than others, but time does erode the hurt. That's a fact of the universe. And just because you can't remember being here before doesn't mean you haven't been here before. Right now, your heart is overwhelming your senses, making reason and logic difficult. That's why I created this podcast. To remind you, to tell you, to promise you. You've been here before, and though right now you're a ball of heartache and pain and misery, there are forces at work outside of that bubble of heartbreak. The winds of time are still blowing. You can't feel it, but time is pushing you forward even now, pushing you forward to new things, things that you cannot even imagine, things that, if I told you now, you wouldn't understand or believe. Doesn't mean they're not on their way. New adventures, new friends, and happiness. You will be happy again. I've been at a point where I knew I would never be happy again. I was wrong. Call out those lies being whispered in your ear. You can't always silence them, but you can take away some of their power. Call them out. Oh, it's you again. I expected you. I've been here before. I've heard your lies before. I expected to feel this. Do you hear that second hand ticking on the clock? That's the enemy of heartache. Because time is moving forward. I've been here before, and what I'm feeling is something that's been felt by every human who ever lived. Let's do some time traveling. Picture a primitive human living in a cave 170,000 years ago. Her child lies lifeless at her feet. She doesn't understand that the child is dead. But she does feel her loss. Her heart aches. She doesn't understand it. She doesn't have to. Heartache is universal. Everyone has experienced it. Every human has battled these same feelings that smother you. And if you really want to be honest, the fact that you're feeling this hurt is an indicator of your humanity. It's a measure of your capacity to love. We'll talk about that more on day 2. For now, recognize the battle between your heart and mind. You don't have to spend your energy trying to fight that battle. You can't silence your heart when it's hurting. But know that things will get better. They always have, and they always will. Thanks for listening. This podcast is free, but for more, or to send me a note or support this series, visit heartbreakpodcast.com. I wish you peace.